Bombshell tonight. We learned the FBI is probing 11 U.S. space scientists either dead or missing. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
The White House and FBI are investigating a string of suspicious deaths and disappearances of at least 11 U.S. scientists, many of whom are involved in classified aerospace, nuclear, and defense research.
Joining us tonight, Crime Stories investigative reporter Dave Mack. Dave Mack, what more can you tell us?
Nancy, we have two more names of scientists, military insiders who are now missing or dead. Two more to add to that list. These are some of the most amazing things we've seen yet. First of all, Matthew Sullivan, a 39-year-old former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer, and a 29-year-old NASA nuclear scientist, Joshua LeBlanc. Matthew Sullivan was scheduled to testify in a whistleblower hearing that was taking place on Capitol Hill. Think about it. A hearing for whistleblowers about UFOs and UFO intelligence within the military. And before he had a chance to testify at that whistleblower hearing, Matthew Sullivan, dead. The circumstances of his death are being questioned by many close to him, but he's gone. NASA nuclear engineer, 29-year-old Joshua LeBlanc, Huntsville, Alabama. Like many of those who have gone missing, Joshua LeBlanc, at 29 years old, was reported missing around 4:30 in the morning. He left his wallet, keys, phone, stuff like that at home, but he was gone, and his family couldn't find him. He didn't show up for work. They were concerned. All day long, Huntsville police were looking for Joshua LeBlanc. This nuclear scientist who was working on nuclear propulsion for NASA was missing all day. 2:45 that afternoon, a fiery crash involving Joshua LeBlanc's Tesla. The crash was so bad, he hit a guardrail, crashed into some trees. His body, not even identifiable for 3 days. When they finally got into the investigation, they were able to go into the Tesla Sentry mode and found out his vehicle, this Tesla, was parked at the Huntsville airport for 4 hours the morning he was reported missing. Just 4 hours. And then later on, dead. So two more odd to explain deaths in the mystery surrounding the scientists that have gone missing or dead recently.
Deep research into anti-gravity jet propulsion, into special alloys made for high-intensity heat, an alloy called Mondelez, and so much more. Ideas and theories that most of us have never imagined that under their skill and expertise were actually coming true until they go missing or are found dead. 11 that we know of. Many of them I've been able to connect, 1, 2, 3, 4, to McCaslin, General Neil McCaslin, who oversaw funding and research, who was seeing over, commanding an entire Air Force base, but also was in charge of funding and overseeing research into many of these projects, joining us, an all-star panel, to make sense of what we are learning tonight. I want to go straight out to special guest joining us, Chris Malore, Deputy Science Editor for Daily Mail. What is happening? Many people thought that this was fantastical, but it's not. And now the FBI has joined the probe, and I would like to add, in stark departure from normal FBI tactics, which we saw out in the Nancy Guthrie case. Remember, the FBI did not enter into the investigation until they were invited by Sheriff Nanos, who took his sweet time doing it and screwed up the investigation. Here, they have jumped in feet first into the disappearance of General McCaslin, which opens up an entire can of worms into the other 10 scientists, and that's 10 that we know of, Chris Malore.
That's right, Nancy. Actually, this has been something that has been pushed by a lot on Capitol Hill. We've spoken to Congressman Eric Burleson and Tim Burchett at length, and they've been pushing for this investigation. A lot of the initial investigations were done by local police, and the congressmen have definitely pushed this into the forefront for a federal investigation as of late.
Many have been found dead. Many just simply disappear. And they disappear under very unusual circumstances. They are connected. That's where I start all criminal investigations, with connectivity. Is there anything linking them? And to you, Brian Fitzgibbons, joining us, Director of Operations, USPA Nationwide Security, who leads a team of investigators finding missing people, former Marine, Iraqi war vet. Brian, many people say these are not connected, but I, from over 1,000 miles away from where they went missing, have been able to connect 5 of them, 4 connected to General Neil McCasland. Much happening out of the New Mexico jurisdiction, New Mexico and California. Listen to these connections and how the people went missing. Let's just start with Melissa Casillas, administrator at the Los Alamos National Laboratory and the AFRL. So you've got the Air Force Lab, the Air Force Research Lab, and Los Alamos Nuclear Lab. She worked there. She worked with Chavez, Los Alamos Nuclear Lab, and AFRL. Monica Jacinto Riza worked at the AFRL, Air Force Research Lab. General McCasland oversaw, actually ran, commandeered the AFRL, including the funding, specifically Riza's project. Stephen Garcia, government contractor, built parts for nuclear weapons connected to the AFRL. Well, I can connect more, but listen to how Melissa Casillas goes missing. She takes her daughter a Subway sandwich for lunch. She says she's going to work from home. She is spotted on camera, surveillance cam, leaving around 2 p.m. in the afternoon there in New Mexico. She never went for a walk in the heat. She took no cell phone, no keys, no identifying objects. Never seen again. Walking briskly eastbound. A shoe that may belong to her was found in a canyon. Even though cadaver dogs and scent dogs were brought out, nothing. Then you've got Monica Jacinto Riza. She got her funding from AFRL, and she was specializing in jet propulsion. She is on a hike in the LA National Forest. She's with a friend, a female friend who's just ahead of her. The friend looks back. She waves and smiles. A few minutes later, she looks back. Monica's gone. Gone. An intense digital search and more was conducted. Nothing. In the space of 10 minutes, she's gone. McCasland, General William Neil McCasland, who oversaw funding, is at home. In the space of less than 1 hour, Fitzgibbons, he disappears. His wife sees him, a repairman sees him. The wife leaves for a hair appointment around 11:04 a.m. She comes back around 12:04 a.m. p.m. He's gone. He leaves without his cell phone, his keys, a smartwatch which would have identified him and tracked him. He leaves behind those prescription glasses you see him wearing. He takes nothing to identify him, but he does take a .38, and he's wearing a pair of hiking boots. Listen to this. Sometime later, a gray Air Force sweatshirt is found discarded by the side of the road. The only thing that would have identified him is found discarded. There's Steve Garcia. Again, goes for a walk and never comes back. Leaving behind phone, watch, ID, you name it. How can these not be connected, Brian Fitzgibbons? And there's more.
Hey, there's a lack of obvious risk factors for a missing persons or a suicide case with all of these individuals that you've named. They have economic stability, government jobs with pensions. They have professional status, highly educated, highly influential in their fields, many of them. And then you add the caveat that they're connected, not loosely, but intimately connected through Air Force research labs and specific projects within that research function. And then you add in the additional caveat that a number of them have gone missing with the same circumstances, leaving Apple Watch and phone behind. This is highly alarming and ought to be investigated thoroughly by the FBI.
What's interesting, Brian, is that I'm talking about the ones that are missing. The others are dead. A couple of them found submerged in bodies of water. Straight out to John Nance joining us, former supervisory special agent with the FBI for over 20 years. John, thank you for being with us tonight. John, why is it the FBI typically waits to be invited in on a local investigation? Why is that?
Well, the FBI doesn't have federal jurisdiction or primary jurisdiction in murder cases. There are some exceptions to that, but that's essentially why you don't see the FBI taking the lead role immediately in cases of that nature. But when it comes to matters like this, especially with the McCaslin disappearance, I think this directly implicates national security issues. In the first part of my career, I spent as a counterintelligence agent, and I can tell you from that perspective, the correlations that we see here are extremely disturbing, and I'm sure that's why Patel's FBI has gone into overdrive with conducting investigations into these matters. Particularly interesting is Amy Eskridge's case and what Frank Milburn had to say with regard to her, the use of directed energy weapons, things of that nature. I think all these things are going to be looked at and analyzed with a fine-tooth comb, so to speak, by the FBI.
Their research, Mr. Nance, was so advanced, it's beyond what many of us can even imagine. For instance, Amy Eskridge, allegedly dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. This is after she texted friends saying, "If I am found dead, I did not commit suicide." She was working on anti-gravity jet propulsion, which is amazing. It's specifically, she was working with her father on an idea she wanted to present to NASA. And it dealt with an aircraft called TR-3B, T-Toy R-3B brother, a triangular craft. And with anti-gravity jet propulsion, that craft could go up, down, to either side, catty-cornered, diagonally, and at rapid rates of speed, unlike anything that we are familiar with, basically defying the laws of gravity. That's what anti-gravity jet propulsion is, and it can be used for a myriad of purposes. The other woman we are discussing, Monica Jacinto Reza, worked at AFRL. That's where she got her funding anyway. She was working on an amazing alloy, a metal that was highly heat resistant to be used on rockets called Mondelez. Many of us have never even heard of that. Now, you mentioned directed energy attacks. And I now know, since I've been investigating this, that a Russian agent was apprehended here in the U.S. in the 2020s with such a device. So this is no longer, in other words, it's like shooting a gun, except it's microwaves. Yes, something that many people only imagine is real. I didn't know that until I started investigating this. Could you describe what that is?
Well, sure. The stuff you're talking about is not science fiction. The triangular-shaped craft that you're describing have been seen and reported about for decades. These individuals, Reza, for instance, was working at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is directly connected to General McCaslin. It's also directly connected to the UAP phenomenon. We've had several congressional hearings with regard to it. And wherever you fall or whether you come down on this issue, it is at its base level a government transparency issue. Eskridge, working on anti-gravity technology or filled propulsion technology would be paradigm shifting. These technologies are, in many people's opinions, the result of crash retrieval programs. We've got, like I said, we've had several congressional hearings with regard to this. I've written several columns at Town Hall with regard to these matters. I've spoken to Representative Burchett about this matter. So we're not talking about science fiction. We're talking about science fact with regard to what these individuals were working on. The directed energy weapon that you have mentioned is a real weapon, obviously, and as Mr. Milburn has described very in very detailed fashion, it's essentially a microwave, a focused microwave energy beam that is capable of cooking you from the inside out. It'll penetrate through a window. It'll penetrate through drywall. All these things taken together, it is a very serious national security threat. To go back to General McCaslin, he was responsible for managing the funding of 80% of the military's SAP programs. Those are special access programs, which, as the name denotes, are access controls of some of the government's most highly classified information. And of course, his work at Wright-Patterson with regard to the Air Force's research and development program, I think that's like a $2 billion program he oversaw. He's literally a walking hard drive of highly classified information. So the FBI is going to be very, very interested in determining what exactly has happened to him.
I've listened very, very carefully to his wife's 911 call, John Nance, and she said specifically, I don't think he wants to be found. I think he plans not to be found. I've noticed that none of the families want to speak out. It's almost as if they're afraid. You mentioned Frank Milburn, former British intelligence officer who knew Amy Eskridge very well, and he is joining us now. To the rest of the panel, please stay with us as I go to Mr. Milburn.